Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, do the shootings in San Bernardino signify the start of a holy war with Islam? The Supreme Court allows First Amendment case challenging Maryland congressional districts to proceed. Will the county council kill its golden goose of liquor control? And even while test scores drop, the MCPS budget seems to increase another 5%. Is the county rewarding failure? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the former majority leader of the Maryland House of Delegates, John Hurson. Former membership director for the Maryland Republican Party, Phil Bell. Former Republican candidate for delegate, Rose Li. And political strategist, Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Should Montgomery County move to unshackle its restaurants and retailers from what is described as an archaic system in which local government distributes every bottle of wine and keg of beer sold in the county? Under the current system, restaurants and stores allege that it's difficult and expensive to offer products that are not listed among the county's limited choices. And under the proposed change, retailers and restaurants now can order such items from the same private wholesalers that stock others in Maryland, and would not have to pay the extra markup to the county. But here's the rub. No general fund monies are used to fund the Department of Liquor Control. It's entirely self-supporting, and in fact, has a profit of almost $30 million per year, approximately $25 million of which is transferred to the general fund. Gino Wren, president of the union local that represents more than 300 employees of the Department of Liquor Control, said, private industry just wants to get their hands on the golden goose at the expense of the taxpayers. John, should the county privatize wholesale and retail liquor sales?
Yes, they should. In the early 1990s, there was a push to actually do this, to start to privatize the whole system, move the entire system of there's a huge, I want to call it a cooler, but where all the beer is stored for the county that comes into the county, we moved to privatize that at the state level, with a state bill. This is all done through state law at the county level, and fought ferociously by the unions, and it was wrong. I mean, we are the most unique county in terms of how we distribute. Only county in the country that distributes this way, and it doesn't make any sense. It's wrong. So that's my answer.
Okay, Susan, what do you think of this proposal?
Well, I should preface my comments with the fact that I chair the Montgomery County Liquor Board. That has to do with the giving and the taking away of license and adjudication. It has nothing to do with the liquor department. When John talks about what happened in 1990, a committee was set up by Doug Duncan with everybody in the committee, and they decided to leave it alone. The premise of this story is a little bit wrong, because the county council people have come together and they have come up with a compromise. That compromise, Casey, is that beer and wine, special beer and wines, can be ordered directly from the distributors, but that the county will keep the liquor and the beer. There are some issues, yes, and it has to do with management, and those issues are being addressed. But from the perspective of the county, when you look at all the budget, there's only about $1.3 billion out of the whole budget that is flexible, that can be used for whatever you want. And $34.5 million of that comes from liquor. When you look long term, and this is what the county executive has been stressing, that we have bonds, and our municipal bonds are based on the revenue coming in. Now, the other
Susan,
issue.
this is only a half-hour show. So
No,
let's
no,
try-
no,
let's
but
try
let
to
me
move it along
finish.
here.
The delegation has come in along with our comptroller and saying, we got to get rid of the whole thing. Well, county residents are beginning to stand up and saying to the delegation, get the hell
All right,
out of county business, and they should.
It's not just county business. It's also a financial issue. There's $30 million worth of taxes or revenue that's going to
Revenue.
have to be replaced. Phil, is this the right time to privatize?
This is absolutely the right time to privatize. You've got to ask yourself the question, we have so much entrepreneurship when it comes to our restaurants, when it comes to the different types of alcohols that are being served. All of this, but yet we're taking all of it to a county warehouse, and then the county is deciding, well, this is what we'll sell, this is how we'll sell it, this is when we'll sell it, and oh, by the way, we're going to tether our bonds to just doing this. This should be privatized now. We should promote the growth in our service sector, in restaurants. Do all of this, and we can help pay the bonds
They
back.
can- they can do
That
that
makes
with beer and
absolute
wine.
sense.
Susan, John, let's follow the money trail.
Yeah.
Are the big wholesalers in Baltimore the ones that are really pushing this so they can get their hands on the Montgomery County market?
Well, yes. I mean, I think you have to be honest about what's happening here in the marketplace.
Yes.
I think the big wholesalers, Budweiser, whoever that is now, a foreign
Total
company.
Wine and More?
All these guys, they actually want to privatize it, and I get that. I mean, that's part of the marketplace dynamics. But the reality is, we're the only county that does it this way in the country.
We're the
All right.
best, maybe.
Well, I don't think that's
So
right.
I'm gonna let Rose finish this up with, is it a good thing to do this or not?
I don't think the county should be in the business of selling liquor. I think if you're going to have that principle, then why doesn't the county sell medicine or sell cars?
All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much, Rose. On the same day that Larry Bowers, the interim superintendent of schools, proposed a 5% increase in the MCPS operating budget, raising it to $2.4 billion a year, boys and girls, there was yet another report that showed that only 37% of Montgomery County students in grades 3 through 8 meet the Common Core math standards. Susan, why is there so little accountability for what appears to be a failing school system? Are we rewarding failure here?
Well, the whole school system would have to be rearranged and legislation done, because right now the school system is an entity unto itself, and all the county can do is write the check. And thanks to the wisdom of our legislators a few years ago, we have maintenance of effort. John's smiling. Because of maintenance and effort, each year we have to keep increasing the budget, whether we like it or not. And the other issue is we have a very, very large immigrant population in this county with a lot of needs that we didn't have 10, 15 years ago. And it is putting a strain on the budget with increasing students every single year. And I wouldn't want to have anything to be a part of the school system for anything, because it's a mess.
Rose, is more money the solution to turning around these poor test results? Or as Susan suggests, we got to regain control over the school board?
Yeah, I think that one of the issues is we have financial accountability to make sure the money is spent the way they say they're going to spend, but we don't have program accountability to see whether the programs actually do what you think they're going to do. So it's not a question necessarily of more money. There have been studies that show that achievement can change and only about 20% of that is due to more money. It's a lot having to do with the quality of the education. You need more one-on-one service. You need more smaller class sizes.
All that costs more money, though.
But it's how you spend the money you have. And the thing that I think is really lacking in the school system is accountability for whether programs work. They try different things all the time, but who's measuring whether that really works? And the failing test scores is an indication that something's not right. Either they're not teaching what they need to teach to have the students do well in the
But
test.
Rose, do you think it makes a difference that there are so many students now, and that number is growing with every single day almost in the county, of students who don't speak English?
Well, that's because we keep accepting border kids, like the 534 that are coming up from the southwest border that was just announced last week.
That's absolutely
we have
true,
more.
but this speaks to what's wrong with the educational system as a whole. We're talking about programs. We're not talking about what the job of the education system is, which is to prepare young people to survive in the world. That's it. As long as we're able to do that, the question of the test scores, the class sizes, the languages that people are speaking, far less relevant. We have to focus on that. And it's not just a Montgomery County issue, it's nationwide. But this is a great chance to say, you know what? We're looking at it the wrong way. We have to approach it properly.
John, are we looking at it the wrong way?
I don't think so. I mean, I like the concept of accountability. I mean, you don't want to constantly increase the budgets of departments that you're not accounting for their performance. I do think there's another factor here, which is pure growth in the county. And there's going to be growth. There's going to be more students being added to the system, irrespective of what accountability, okay? So you have to have that growth. But I think accountability is a good question to start asking. I mean, I really do. And
But will the legislature do anything about it? Because the legislature is going to have to act on it, and every time I've heard it come up in conversations, there is dead silence.
Well, but first of all, I think the county council and the executive have to get in the game. We have to allow them to be in the game.
They can't be because of the law. They get the money.
That's my point. We need to change the
Yeah,
law.
And that's what I'm saying, but the legislature has to do that.
Because right now, the average voter, when they're voting, doesn't realize that 50% of the budget is being determined by the Board of Education.
Oh, well, yes, they do. And you know what's really funny?
No,
because you go to a forum for the county council members, and the first question is education funding. And they have to say, we have no control over that funding.
But that's
Let
the
me
point.
just make
The
one
first
point.
question is education funding, because the populace
Believes that they
thinks they have a role in the game.
Okay, so let me, one final point. We really need to evaluate. This has been a constant tension between you have a school board that's elected separately from the county council, the funding, the way the funding works, the county council has to support basically what the school board comes up with. This is not a good system. It's not a good
Absolutely
system. And people need to, it's time for
Maybe
just a
we
reevaluation.
need another Thornton Commission.
We need to reevaluate it.
Thank you, John. That's going to wrap it up for this segment. When we come back from this short break, how real is Islamophobia? And the Supreme Court allows a case against Maryland congressional districts to proceed. Stay tuned. If you could only have heard what we were saying to one another during the break. Unbelievable. What is the significance of the Supreme Court's action when it determined that the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals erred when it dismissed a challenge to Maryland's congressional districts without convening a three-judge panel to hear the case? Writing for a unanimous Supreme Court, Justice Antonin Scalia described Maryland's 8 congressional districts as a crazy quilt. And while the ruling was on the technicality of the lower court's action, the ramifications of the suit, which challenges gerrymandering of congressional districts under the First Amendment, may expand other cases. Phil, was the court essentially saying that there can be some instances of gerrymandering that violate your freedom of speech?
Yeah, the court was right in doing this and taking this case because there's no question, if you look at Maryland's congressional districts, every one of them is absurdly drawn. There's no question it was just for the purpose of electing the folks the legislature wanted to put there. And that's against the idea of the people electing their representatives. On a broader scale, when you look at some of the other states that have faced this, Florida, Virginia, Texas, it is questionable what actually the goal is. Because on one hand, we've decided redistricting is something state legislatures do, and it's so that people have an interest in their state legislatures.
Well, that's the uniqueness of this case, which is being brought on a different constitutional challenge than the 14th Amendment. So, John, is Maryland doing something that the other states aren't, and should we be concerned about it?
Let's step back just for a second. I think the Supreme Court took this case basically because Maryland is very unique. It's the weirdest shaped state in the country. Okay, it's got this panhandle that goes way out. It's and it's a weird shape. So designing the congressional districts in Maryland is particularly difficult. So the Supreme Court taking this case actually is saying, we don't care how weird the shape of your state is. we're going to make some constitutional determinations about what you can and cannot do in terms of shaping these districts. It doesn't matter the shape of your state. I think they wanted to take Maryland particularly. Maryland's congressional districts, they're insane. I mean, they really are. I mean, and I respect the right of the legislature, which I think should stay. The right of state legislatures to design the districts is the right place for that to happen. But this is not. They took a good case.
We've talked about gerrymandering a lot in the past, and we're going to continue while this case goes forward. But John, I would like to point out that there is a state called Oklahoma that also has a panhandle.
But they don't have water and little
But Michigan, you look at Michigan.
We're going
that's
to
a weird
get
state.
everybody here a map so we can look at the shapes of the states. On our final segment, as more and more details of the shootings in San Bernardino 10 days ago emerge, how the two murderers had a long history of Islamic radicalism, how the female shooter, Tashfeen Malik, falsified her visa application to come to America. The rhetoric on the presidential campaign trail has increased in its intensity. This has led to speculation that there will be a backlash against Muslims in the United States. Thus far, the signs of outward aggression have been limited, but many in the Muslim community describe a general uncomfortable chill while in public. Rose, is there a growing backlash towards Muslims?
I think there's a difference between Muslims and the people and Muslim, the religion. And there have been studies, Brookings Institution just put out a study recently showing that the American population is more tolerant and comfortable with Muslims as people and more uncomfortable with Islam as a religion. And I think given all the events that have happened, I think there's good reason to understand why they're feeling that way. So I think we all have to be vigilant against discriminating against people, but I think it's, if I were Muslim and had children, I think I would be a little concerned about how my children would be treated at school and in different public environments. But yes, I think it's a concern.
Okay, Susan, many express the sentiment that it's the responsibility of the nonviolent Muslim community to vocally condemn the violence being committed in the name of Islam. Are they correct?
Well, first of all, Secretary Clinton made an interesting comment, and I agree with her. She said we shouldn't be talking about radical Islam. We should be talking about the jihadists. So it separates out the people, much as Rose said, who are Muslims. It was very interesting. Last night, what's happening right here in Montgomery County is what you're talking about. There was a meeting in a mosque on New Hampshire Avenue, and Muslims from around the area came to that meeting. And there was conversation of people saying, my kids are being discriminated against. They're terrified to go to school, that sorts of things. But
are those really real sentiments?
They are. And it is.
Susan, let me ask the follow-up question, though. The surge of violence that has been committed by Muslims in the United States, isn't there a reason for the general population to be concerned?
Wait a minute. I don't think you can say there have been a lot of them. There was this one. The shootings in Connecticut, South Carolina, Oregon.
Wait a second. Hold
Fort
on.
Hood.
Fort Hood, there are two.
Let's go through
But
them,
let's
Susan.
not exaggerate. There are two.
There are more than two, Susan.
No. There are mass shootings everywhere.
Phil,
but they are.
This is the problem that we're having. In fact, Susan, what you said about Secretary Clinton is exactly what's wrong here. We're trying to change the topic of what it is away from the topic of what it should be. The reality is that while, yes, absolutely, there are a lot of great people, they are Muslim, however, radical Islam is an issue. It has to be addressed. It has to be addressed aggressively from the top down.
Well, we have to be careful because people get heated because they don't know the difference.
People get heated, but the way to make sure that people know the difference is for those of us who know what the difference is to make sure that's out there. But it's important for our government, for our leaders, and absolutely for our presidential candidates to be aggressive in calling attention to what's here and making sure
but
that does not
Trump
die.
is making a fool out of himself and this country in the conversation.
What is frustrating for many Americans is that there's not a good understanding of the Muslim faith and Islam in general.
Right.
And there is a debate as to whether or not, if you are a devout believer in Muslim or Islam, that you are by nature going to have to be radical and aggressive.
That's clearly not the case.
But
okay?
that is the misunderstanding.
It is a
that is
total
being,
misunderstanding.
that is
and
out there.
That's why this whole debate about calling it radical Islam and all that stuff it is a debate, because it's really not about the religion, okay? You have a group of people who have decided to take a religion or parts of that religion and decide that it's some kind of, jihad, that they have to, it's not the religion, okay? These people have taken it, and that's why taking it away from the religion, taking that religion and morphed it. It's like saying radical, it's like saying the mob, in New York City is like, radical, Catholics.
Isn't it more,
I mean,
important
wrong.
than ever?
It's wrong to describe it that way.
That nonviolent Muslims speak out on this, and
They
I think
are.
there's a
Oh, they
frustration.
should. They
there's
should.
a frustration that
should.
more haven't been
Well,
vocal
but
on
they
this.
have,
That's
and
right.
Casey, I want to just add to John's point, because people don't understand this. And so I have heard on multiple occasions now people saying there are degrees of Catholicism. John, Casey, and I are all Catholics. We all believe different things, but we're all Catholics.
Right.
And that's the way it is with Islam. People who believed in the Islamic faith, they're all over the map. And I think
Yeah, but
based
wait a
I
second,
think you're,
but
I think you're
this is
painting
not-
with too broad a brush here, and unfortunately, we don't have the time to go into it. There are differences and distinctions in our religion and in others, but there is a problem that we have with Muslims. And Muslims have to address this.
I disagree with
All right,
you.
well, that's fine.
It's not a problem in Islam. It's a problem with a
John,
certain
there's a
group of people.
There's a worldwide problem of violence that has been perpetrated in the name of Islam.
Well, and there's been
And it
violence
all
in the name
started
of
after we
Catholicism
attacked
as
In
Iraq.
the
well.
last 20 years,
certainly did
John,
not.
give one example of violence that has been perpetrated in the name of Catholicism.
IRA.
The IRA.
Yeah.
Yeah. The shooter who went into Planned Parenthood.
Oh, God, you guys are whistling past the graveyard. Stay tuned for parting shots. And now with parting shots, Phil Bell.
With all the discussion of Islamic extremism and terrorism over the past few weeks, I think it's important to remember the victims of Pan Am Flight 103 were close to a little over a week until the anniversary of that tragedy, and it not only destroyed people's lives, but it also destroyed an airline and a way of life. So my heart goes out to those families and people.
Thank you, Phil. John Hurson, your parting shot.
We're coming up on the holiday season. We're actually in it for Hanukkah and for Christmas. I think it's a good time for everybody to reflect on the greatness of this country, being able to move together, multi-religions, multi-societies, different views of life, but all coming together around a holiday season. So enjoy yourself.
Thank you, John. Susan Heltemes, your parting shot.
On Thursday of this week, Officer Leota, a 24-year-old, exuberant, bright, wonderful police officer, died in Montgomery County. He was killed by a drunk driver. And this is the season when partying takes place. The man who hit him had been drinking for probably 4 hours in a bar before he got there. We talk about see something, say something. If you are in a social situation, take away keys, call the cops, call a cab. We all need to be a little more responsible. This death was tragic and totally unnecessary.
Thank you, Susan. Rose Lee, your parting shot.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the Department of Aging. I have been appointed by Larry Hogan, the governor, to the Commission on Aging, and I have been able to see firsthand how great a job Secretary Rona Kramer is doing. I think it's terrific. She is a Democrat that was appointed and serving in a Republican administration. And funds are drying up, and I think it's ironic that we keep talking about maintenance of effort for school systems and children, but nobody ever seems to talk about it for the elderly, which is ballooning in numbers and needing more services. It's a difficult time, and she's doing a tremendous job meeting that challenge.
Thank you, Rose. I want to comment on the fact that on this panel we have some very strong and differing opinions. And there is one of the things that is an outcropping of the violence that occurred in San Bernardino is the fear that people have. We are no longer feeling safe in our own home, in our own country, and this is causing the tension, and it's also causing the backlash that we discussed briefly here today. One of the good things, though, however, is being able to discuss it and try to resolve it amongst ourselves peacefully. I want to thank the panel for being here tonight. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.